hi everyone, welcome to our class today, and especially our fifth formers. We know we're wrapping up that school year, but of course we have to look at some of our topics, especially we're getting ready for CSEC. And of course we're doing, as you can see, population. Now it's a term that I'm sure all of you are very familiar with. And we can say that it's something not only you're familiar, but you are a part of a population. You can be part of a population of your home. You can be part of a population of your community. And you can be a part of a population of your country and of course the whole world, the whole galaxy. All right? And so just before we delve in a bit, we're going to look at these three terms. We have the individual, that's me, that's you. All right? So obviously we know an individual is basically the foundation of any population. And of course, collective individuals creates a population. And then together this population, and I can at least tell you that your population can be one. It might be a funny concept, but a population can be one. Someone who lives alone is a population of one in their own home. And then a population will go on to form a community. All right? So, and I know especially with the whole pandemic and COVID discussion, the word population has been coming up again and again and again in the news. All right, so look at this diagram I have here. I have this one person, a lovely lady here. We have a group of people here in this photograph, and we have another photograph with people and a dog. Can you figure out of the three photographs which one collectively doesn't represent a population? Okay, if you guessed this one, you are correct. For something to be termed a population, you must be of the same species. So as much as they may love their dog, the dog cannot be counted as part of their population. Dogs have their own population, so if mother dog and father dog and their pups have to be counted, that's a dog population, the canine population. But we're talking about humans here, right? So the humans in the family form their own population, but together they can't, all right? This will probably represent a population of a community. And of course, this young lady here, she's an individual, but she forms part of her community. All right? So let's look at that definition again. So a population is the sum of all organisms of the same group or species. As fifth formers, I'm sure you have come across the term species in your science subjects, which live in a particular geographical area and have the capability of reproduction. Very key, some key terms here. All right, so organisms, we have geographical area. That is, you have to be living in a certain area. But when I started off, I said you can have a population in a house, a community, an island, a territory, or even the world. So your geography changes scale from very small to very large. All right, so that's a population. And of course, you belong to your particular populations. Now let's talk about the things that affect every population. It doesn't matter if you're from India, you're from Australia, the United States, Dominica, you're from Maho. Population is affected by these three main factors. The first one, births. We were all born, that's why we're here. All right? And every second, in fact, research says that a baby is born every 2.3 seconds in the world. All right? So take away, a new baby was born. All right? So births. Also, very unfortunately, deaths affect population. And unfortunately, we know that especially in this pandemic, we hear a lot more about deaths and how it's affecting populations. And we can say probably in a few years, we can study what the deaths of during this pandemic has done to certain populations. All right? And the third one often not regarded but plays a very major role is migration. All right, so if we had to look at the population of Dominica, let's say 15 years ago, the people who were once living in Dominica are probably somewhere else, probably in another community. All right, so maybe 15 years ago, your parents lived in Petite Savanne. And after the disaster, quite a few of them left, not quite a few, a lot of them left and migrated to other communities in Dominica. What has happened? The populations of other communities have skyrocketed. All right? So these three factors can and will affect your population. Again, it can be on a small scale, your home. Think of your mother and father having a baby. You are probably the only child. Imagine after 9 months, the family's population has grown by 1 or 2. All right? Deaths. If a family member dies, it brings your population of your home, your community, and the country down. And of course, migration. Let's just say one of your siblings migrate to another country for studies. It brings the population of your family home, Dominica, your community, down. So we can see how all these three factors affect the population from your home, your community, your country. All right? So let's look a little closer at these definitions that you will probably come across. The birth rate, or often called natality. It is the average number of children born per 1,000 people. All right? So let's say at the end of this year in Dominica, 2020, let's just say about 150 babies are born. It is calculated against every 1,000 people who live in Dominica. Okay? Your fertility rate, it is the average number of children a woman has during her lifetime. Now you might ask, what's the difference between fertility rate and birth rate? They are different. Birth rate is the actual births. So the hospital and different institutions responsible for helping in birthing babies at the end of the year must give an account to the registry and say, okay, in Dominica we saw 255 births. Fertility rate, however, is the average number of children a woman, and I should add, expected. So, for example, you look at your mother, and your mother maybe had 5 children. A woman in another home had 2. What we do is that at the end of the year, we average the number of children every woman in Dominica had. So 6, 2, 1, 0. We average it and we see the trend in the number of children Dominican women, Antiguan women, Jamaican women, Australian women tend to have. Now, the word here is expected. It's missing, but it's expected. In other words, a woman doesn't have to have a child, okay, for whatever reason. But her fertility rate is compared to the other women around her. Good? All right. Mortality rate or death rate. It's the number of deaths per 1,000 people. Again, at the end of this year, 2020, we look at all the people who have died in Dominica. A death has to be registered, a birth has to be registered, and we calculate the number of people who have died. So we check to see what is the rate of deaths in our country. And I'm sure you can expect that some countries and some states, especially in the US, are having higher death rates due to this pandemic. All right, so it will be very interesting to see at the end of 2020 what has happened. All right? And another big one when we talk about demographics, I mean, there are a lot of terms that we need to know, but these 4 are the key ones. Life expectancy. It is the average length of life or the average number of years that we expected to live. Now in Dominica, everybody feels like they're entitled to 100 years because we've been told by the records that we have the most centenarians per capita. All right, so the average Dominican feels, well, I can reach 100, and that's true. But for now, we will, or a little later, we'll see what is Dominica's average life expectancy. All right, and the way they calculate this is that they look at the death rate, the death at the age actually that people die every year. So someone might die at 40, someone might die at 1 year old, someone might die at 79. And we calculate all the ages that people die at the end of every year. And then they calculate it and they see, okay, well, if we have to average it out, it shows that the people in this population die at, let's say, 60 years. So it kind of gives you an idea as to what age you are expected to live, but you can surpass it or you can fall beneath it, all right? But for your sake, I hope we all reach 100 years very happily and healthily. All right, so we continue. All right, let's look at the real numbers. I've been telling you about the terms. Look at this, Dominica, 2018. This is some of the statistics for Dominica in 2018. So as of 2018, our population, that is everybody who lives within Dominica, came up to 74,027, right? We looked at the term birth rate. So in 2018, we had 15 births per 1,000, all right? You'll probably tell me if that's low or if that's high, but I can tell you for sure it's not high, all right? When we have countries in especially sub-Saharan Africa with birth rates up to 60, okay? Our death rate in Dominica is 7.9 per 1,000. That is excellent, actually. And very important for you to note, if your birth rate is higher than your death rate, it means that there is a surplus in your population. That means your population will grow. If, however, your death rate is higher than your birth rate, we have a problem here. All right? Something to remember. Our migration rate shows a negative 5.4 per 1,000. Negative means they are moving out. If we had a plus sign or a positive number, it means that we would have 5 people per 1,000 coming into Dominica. But unfortunately for us, negative 5.4, it means that we have about 5 people leaving Dominica, as in departing Dominica, of every 1,000. All right, so we're experiencing a lot of migration. Life expectancy at birth. Currently in Dominica, well, in 2018, it says males, and they break it down into sexes, just to let you know that males and females, we behave very differently, and it affects our life expectancy. We know that, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but we know that men tend to do more strenuous and more risky jobs than females, all right? It's a known fact, females tend to take care of their health a little better than men, all right? And it shows. So the males live in Dominica, 2018, probably hasn't changed that much, 74 years. So the average man in Dominica can say, well, I'll reach my 70, yes, 70 years. I'll probably see my grandchildren go off to school. Look at the female number, 80.5. So it shows that women are outliving men in Dominica by 6 years. And just to let you know, women outlive men in almost every country in the world. Just a fun fact for you. We outlive the men, and guys, you got to do something about that. All right? So taking care of yourself, going to the doctors more often, might actually add a few more years on your life, and you can catch up with us, ladies, all right? And total fertility rate, very interesting. It shows 2.03. If we round it off in math, it's 2. It says that the average Dominican woman tends to have 2 children. Again, it is not the actual birth. It just means that, you know, most women stop at 2. We know that some people are having more than 2, some are having less than 2, like 1 or none at all. But when we average it, in 2018, when we got these results, showed that the average Dominican woman living in Dominica has 2. And guess what? All this, you may consider yourself Dominican born and bred, but from the time you leave Dominica, let's say to migrate, your behaviors may change. and it can affect the same sort of results for the country that you're migrating to. So for example, you migrate to a country that is a Muslim country where we can say things like fertility is very well respected. Having more children is an honor. Or due to religious reasons, you are not supposed to use certain things like contraceptives. That can affect your birth rates and fertility rate. All right, so we looked at Dominica's population and comparing it to the terms that we studied a little earlier. And as I wrap up, I'd like to just show you one more little fine detail when it comes to population dynamics. A population pyramid. All right, we know what the pyramids look like in Egypt, right? Small on top, very wide at the bottom. That's what they said that the average country's population pyramid is supposed to look like. But that's only when it's in the developing states. We know that some countries are developing and some countries are developed, like we consider the US, Great Britain to be considered developed countries, and developing countries are some of us in the Caribbean, sub-Saharan Africa, and parts of Southeast Asia. So we see this pyramid, just to let you know, why do we put our populations in pyramid? It really breaks down the population, easy numbers and very visually appealing. The right side represents all the females in the population, and the left side, sorry, my left, represents females, and this side represents the males. So it shows everybody in the population based on age. So this indicates the age, and this indicates the sex. So it shows for now that the largest portion of your population, which is expected, are the young people, all right, between the ages of 0 and let's just say about 19. So between 0 and 19, so we can say this is a very young population. When you go up to the top, where we see the older people, it starts to get very slim, almost starting to disappear. So Ethiopia, we can tell, has very little or very few people, very old, few older people, all right? It means that they're dying off. By the time they get to 60, they're dying off very quickly. All right, we have the United States. You see that pyramid? It's gone. It definitely means that the population is almost the same in every age category. That's probably a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what you're looking at. But this sort of pyramid, which we call a contracting pyramid, shows that the population is almost on a standstill. The last time there was a big boom in babies, we can tell, is between this time where it's a little heavier. So that's like in the 1960s. And finally, Italy, which is basically decreasing. Look at this below here. Almost, I mean, it's shrinking. And Italy is a little bit, I don't want to use the word worse, but it is developed, even more developed in terms of its population. You can tell they're not having any babies or having very few. All right, so we go from a population that has a lot of babies being born, but a high death rate. We're seeing this population, a fairly contracting population, that is, they're making less and less and less. And people are actually living much older. If you can tell, it's much bigger than here. And in this population, well, having few babies, but they're living very long. All right? So population pyramids in your classes should be discussed and studied further if you would like to know a little bit more of population pyramids. But it is the main figure we use in geography or demography, which is the study of population, to let us know what the population of a country looks like. All right? So that's it for today. So just to recap, we studied populations. We started with the individual, that's me, and that's you. All right? And as individuals, we create a population. And populations are found in communities, and of course, communities go on to form countries and regions and the world. All right? And we looked at 3 major factors that affect our populations: births, deaths, and migration. All right? So the next time you hear someone expecting a baby, you can just say one more added to Dominica. All right? And if you hear someone dying, it means that we have just lost someone. All right? But we are assured, because of how nature works, there is a balance. There will be babies born and there will be people dying. And of course, migration, if you choose to leave, you will affect your country and you will also affect the country that you are migrating to. All right, I wish you all the best performance on your CSET, and I'm sure you got this.